The following clip is presented to you by The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, available every Friday wherever you get your podcasts and at extremehardy.com. Well, in January of 2004, Chris Benoit wins the Royal Rumble, and we are about to see a major change for the dynamics in WWE.
Right.
Eddie is on the SmackDown brand. Chris moves over to Raw after he wins the Rumble, and Eddie becomes a top guy on SmackDown. He wins a Rumble in his own right on SmackDown and earns the right to face Brock Lesnar at No Way Out. And he does that in the Cow Palace, winning the WWE Championship for the first time. A former cruiserweight is now WWE Champion, defeating Brock Lesnar. Before I talk about the implications of what this meant, do you have any memories from that night at the Cow Palace?
I remember being just overly excited and happy for Eddie that he was getting that moment and that opportunity, because he is someone who was absolutely deserving of it. And Brock was great in there with him. Brock was all in too, 100%. Brock always been a consummate professional, really, in that capacity. But I just remember thinking, like, man, this guy's been through so many struggles, so many ups, so many downs, and just it's so great that he is having this big moment where he finally wins the big one, and everyone looks at him as a hero. It was just, I was very happy for him, and he was someone who was very deserving of that moment. So I'm just glad it happened.
We always discuss on this podcast how great pro wrestling can be when the fans feel with the journey of the performer and they feel with that pursuit.
Right.
That reaction is one of the most insane reactions in WWE history when he wins that championship. And it's a B pay-per-view for SmackDown, but everyone's talking about this, and it goes down as one of the most memorable championship matches in company history because of that. But most importantly, it's a big shift in how performers are looked at in WWE, because now a guy like Eddie is champion, and guys like Eddie were not supposed to be champion. Did that give any hope to the locker room, even to guys like yourself? Or I know Jeff wasn't necessarily there at the time, but maybe a guy like Jeff that, hey, one of us Hardy Boys could maybe be a world champion one day too.
I mean, I think so. I think once again, it just really displayed how the business was evolving and how it was changing, and how it wasn't always about having this, big guy who was a monster, or, a guy who doesn't necessarily fits Vince's image for a world champion becomes the world champion, and he did that over his his great in-ring work. And also too, like, Vince loved him as a character. Vince was a big Eddie Guerrero fan. I don't know how much that's been talked about, but I do know that, especially with our interactions when we were doing the stuff with him before. And I know whenever they'd be going over stuff or rehearsing stuff, and like Vince would kind of do his thing and mimic him dancing or whatever, this is kind of how I see this. I mean, he really enjoyed the character that Eddie Guerrero was, and he was all in on pushing him. So yeah, it was very cool to see a smaller guy who was started as a cruiserweight get that opportunity to hold the top title in WWE.